PROMYK supports a foundation for children, stimulating development of executive functions of children at preschool and elementary school age. The concept of executive function first appeared in the 1970s and had significant impact on the way we think about thinking. Executive functions are very complex functions from a psychological standpoint that are used in various activities. They mostly relate to intelligently planning actions, carrying them out, and adjusting those plans as the need arises. Neuropsychology is the field in which executive function studies have been performed, and they have expanded as quickly as the field itself. The most important executive functions research was done on the frontal lobe. Damage to the frontal lobe can slow down development of the planning functions of the individual, and therefore it is critical to the executive function studies. We treat executive function as basic competence. It is a dominant system between neural as a system of processing information and physical as a set of executive activities. The executive functions have a significant influence on the process of learning. There is no correct process of learning without integrating neural and physical aspects. In general, it is the dominant system, which is responsible for integration and organization of many complex processes and is responsible for the fact that human activity is planned, strategic, and controlled. We treat executive function as basic competence. It is a dominant system between The innovation of our therapeutic method is that we act on the cause and not on the symptoms. If the child is not able to do something, the parents usually take the child to the therapist and are working on eliminating or improving something that the child cannot do. We instead are leaving this formula behind in our method and we act on the root cause. The main functions are suppression, defined as suppression of impulse behavior, and within that component we also consider concentration on a specific task. Next is cognitive flexibility, which is the flexible adjustment to changing environment and conditions, but also the ability to look at one task from many different perspectives. The third is working memory, responsible for the short-time storage of information and the aim of processing it. It is also worth mentioning that the ability to forget information quickly, which is deemed not important, also falls under suppression. Present our method. Our method follows experience, that the methods which are proposed to the children must be inscribed in the development of children's needs. We are trying to work with the child and not trying to adjust the child to our preset method. We work with children from the age of 3 to 6 and with the children in the early school age, because in this age the flexibility of executive function development is at its highest. The neuropsychology defines the very close relationship between the executive functions and emotions. The first pillar of our method is finding motivation for acting. This aspect is developed by our interactive floor. The second pillar is the independent activity which is undertaken by the child. The main assumption in this pillar is the fact that the activity undertaken by the child is planned, conscious, and targeted. To realize this aim, we use next component, which I will discuss later. The point is that the initiative, activity taken by the child, is not to be too encompassing. The only initiative is self-regulated. The third main pillar, important in this age, is team planning and development of the social competencies. In the playgroup, there are always 4 children or 3 children and a teacher. Some executive abilities that could lead to self-regulations cannot be realized in isolation. Our aim is to equip children with a structure, and this structure is the organization of problem thinking. The organization of problem thinking is very closely related to executive functions. As a science model, we decided to use the ideal model. This name comes from the first letters of problem thinking. As you can see on the slide, ideal concept represents I for identification of an important problem, D defining specific goals for the solution of the problem, E for exploration of possible solutions, in other words, creating a strategy, A for anticipation of possible results, and L for looking back at the problem in the context of results obtained. We work with children, so we do not use this sort of scientific language. This ideal model we presented is a graphic way in which it is more readable and understandable for the children. The first graphic element is stop, symbolized by the hand. Second is look at what you see, symbolized by the blue eye. The third is say what you see, symbolized by the red mouth. And the fourth is create a strategy, symbolized by the steps. Children very naturally accept these signs, and it doesn't cause them any problems. The most crucial element in this graphic is speech. Speech for a little child is not only a tool for speaking, but also thinking and acting. You probably had the opportunity to observe a little child when they regulate their behavior and activities through giving themselves instructions. They organize different stimuli coming from the environment, and they suppress themselves in another way. For example, when they see a paddle in front of them, they say, "Stop, do not go." In adults, we see the same pattern, but there is a difference as verbal speech is taken over by internal speech. However, the effectiveness of internal speech is dependent on the quality and quantity of experience in the childhood. The structure, which you can see here, has a deeper meaning. In reality, research shows that a person in life uses strategies which they have practiced during their life and built on attaching new skills to those old experiences. Our aim is that the child is equipped with a strategy of problem thinking, which will allow them to approach each problematic situation in their life in a constructive manner, not only in the educational context, but also in the social context. Our experience with older children is that even children of high IQ, called crystallized intelligence, in proposed existing educational systems, when given ready-made strategy, are able to juggle these strategies between different subjects and achieve excellent results. However, in problem situations, they are not standard school problems. For example, in relationship situations or social situations, they are not able to build their own strategies. To sum up, the point is to redirect the children's attention from problem to solution finding. The most important element in our method is presented in this slide. It shows the important executive functions which must be integrated for controlled, targeted, and conscious actions. This is why our method is called integration of the executive functions. I would like to underline that integration is here in the context of execution. As Professor Żelazo says, we need to look at the executive functions from the point of view of effectiveness. For teachers and therapists, we are focusing on the aspect of the execution of how to integrate functions around the task which lead to the solution. Here is the table which shows a few of our games, and it shows in a graphical way how these executive functions work. The idea is that particular games are focusing on practicing a certain executive functions. The target group for our method are children from the age of 3 to 6 and children in the early school age, in which we would like to stimulate the development of executive functions. We would like to put these skills first before reading skills or other traditional abilities. The second target group in therapy are children with suppression problems, which have ADHD, children on the autism spectrum, and children with intellectual disability. Why do we not have ready instructions for the games? For example, if I provide the instruction, look carefully and tell me which hat is hiding the rabbit, the result is that the teacher will provide the right strategy for resolving the problem. This teaches the child only to control their attention on the task and to follow a preset path. However, if I say, what do you think is the point of this puzzle? The child must organize science stimulus, therefore practicing organization, must uncover the rules, therefore practicing cognitive flexibility, must create a strategy, therefore developing strategic thinking while also controlling their attention. If the child points to the wrong hat, the child is going to hear the strange negative sound, and influenced by the feedback information, the child is going to change the strategy. Our aim is most of all integration of a differentiated group, children without disabilities and children with disabilities around one attention field. The interactive floor satisfies that aim very well because children with different problems, which have different sources of motivation, can concentrate specifically on this interactive floor. Their motivations sometimes interact with each other and sometimes they are different. But we have managed to find the common field of attention, which simulates a child to mutual relations. In the case of a child with autism, it allows us to keep the child in the present moment. For this, we use different external elements, for example, colorful scarves, sticks, other children whom are necessary for the solution of some problems. Children with autism are very keen on working on the new technology equipment and different games which are based on sign perception. There are many computer games that can simulate a child, but they do not count as therapeutic since they only reinforce isolation. In our method, working on the interactive floor, we use the potential of the autistic child and his willingness to work on sign perception, but we make them dependent on external factors. In computer games, the focus is on what we called cold functions. Simply speaking, it is start, stop, and control. In game, the child jumps over, catches, targets, shoots, and then they achieve a high score in the game. In the context of the game, they have skills. However, the problem is that these competencies are not transferable to life. It means the child with shooting skills still has a social conflict with colleagues in the group. The child is not able to suppress his negative actions or is not able to finish his tasks in school. They have no ability to concentrate on the tasks since they don't have resistance to distractions. It is a very common reason for the parent-teacher conflict. Parents know that the child is gifted and they can do a lot of things at home, so the parent claims that child is doing all of the required tasks well at home. They suspect the teachers are not friendly to the child. On the opposite end, the teacher, if he does not know the value of executive function, gives the child poor marks, not for specific ability, but a lack of ability in the field of executive functions. Our method concentrates on the field of neuropsychology. It is based on the ecological approach to the child, which organizes the child's environment in such a way that imitates the highest degree of natural education in life. The following slides show a table that specifies executive functions which are evaluated during games.